right. So Mark, welcome back to the show, buddy. We talk a lot, so this is probably just gonna be another chat that everybody gets to listen to.
That's right. I love it. It's a chance for me to get to hang out with you and all your friends.
Yeah, this is good stuff. So as I said in the intro for the Wicked Smart listeners, because you weren't with me when I did it, we just do an awful lot together. We keep up leveling. And here's one question that I know will bring us to another thing we were just talking about. And that is, I think now of, say, Nick and Zach, because they're only 30 and 33, whatever they are. They're in the early 30s. And they're my quote unquote kids. But I thought, what the heck would it look like for me if I started when I was their age? What would it look like now? And then when I was talking to you, you phrased it a little differently on a different topic altogether. What would it look like if it were easy? So I don't know. Let's peel back both of those. I don't know what your comments are on. Maybe it's too much for both of those, but what are your thoughts?
Well, most Americans that I sit down with over the phone or over Zoom, we have one-on-one meetings about their financial life. And the way most people, in not so many words, Chris, they describe their financial life like a big bag of rocks, dragging them down, weighing them on their shoulders. I agree. They got their brokerage account when they felt like they could throw a little money at the market. They got a couple credit cards when they got out of college. They got a couple student loans while they were in college. The Roth IRA sounded cool at the water cooler. So they got one of those. The 401k was sort of hoisted on them when they got their first day job. And they don't know why they have all these different accounts. And someday, somehow, hopefully they all solve their financial problems in retirement and whatever. But it just starts to sort of feel like all these lumpy bag of rocks behind you. And it's all not really coordinated or working together well. So Tim Ferriss came up with this question. I think it's a great one. He wrote it in his book, Tribe of Mentors. And he wrote the question, what would it look like if it were easy? And that's a great question for most any part of your life, your fitness, your marriage, your personal life, personal development, playing the mandolin. What would it look like if it were easy? But it really fits the financial world, in my opinion. It fits the financial life too, because most people put their money in things that make it really hard. Putting money into a 401k, great example. It goes into something you can't control. It's overly expensive in terms of the fees and investments and the underperformance of which, and you can't really get the money out until you're 60 years young, so for your kiddos, that might be 30 plus years for them to not have any access to that money. So for you, Chris, I'm curious, what would it look like if it were easy?
Well, I'm not because you're on the show, but the reason I brought that question up is because it seriously is simplified just dealing with you and keep up leveling. I mean, we're talking literally as recent as last week, and we'll probably talk next week. And I'm saying that for the listeners to know, I said it in the intro because I wish I did it. I wish I did it when I was their age. And that's why I'm not projecting that they do it, but I'm saying, look, here's what I thought I should have done back then. Would have been a heck of a lot easier now. So I just said recently, you did some new plans for me. And I said recently to my wife, if I just do what Mark's saying, it simplifies it yet another whole notch where I don't want to think about that stuff anymore. And it used to be where I tried to self-manage all that crap. So I don't know, I think it's getting there right now, to be honest with you. But for people maybe a bit younger, or it doesn't matter what age, they should be jumping into this with you, at least exploring it. Let me say it that way.
Yeah. It doesn't hurt to discover options. I think most of the time we think that's all there is, and that's okay. That's kind of the human way, right? It's the human condition. You're just sort of handed that 401k, you're handed that student loan. I sure was. I graduated from college with $120,000 of student loan debt and no plan to pay it off, no real awareness of money. And it took some good mentors and guides to get me out of my, little crab bucket of life. You know what I mean by the crab bucket of life, Chris, right? Where you try to climb out and they grab you and pull you back in.
Yeah.
But it's that breaking out of that mindset and thinking about what else is possible. So what would it look like if it were easy? To me, I'll answer that question. For me, I wanted access to my money for any reason. I didn't want it locked away in some, vault somewhere until I was some special age, like 59 and a half, for example. I wanted the results and outcomes to be determined before I even began. That's a big one right there. I wanted the outcome and the results to be determined before I even began. In other words, I wanted a predictable rate of return that I could absolutely count on. I'd know, hey, on a guaranteed minimum, my net worth is going to be X when I'm 50, 60, 70 years old, and I can take out this amount of money every year and I didn't want any taxes due on that money. Why? Because it's not easy guessing what Congress is going to do to our retirement accounts when they're in taxable 401ks and IRAs.
Right.
That's not easy. That's anything but easy, right? When every year they get to decide how much of my retirement they get to keep over there in Washington. So to me, that was a big part of what does it look like if it were easy. I better hush for a minute, Chris, and get your feedback. Anything else you'd throw on the pile there as far as what would it look like if
I
it were
gave
easy?
you too generic of an answer. My only one I would add to that is because I'm thinking through this whole process now with you is just the safety. There's so many people that would like to have that upside, but the reality is that if you buy yourself a special, you ain't getting to that stock that's going to go quadruple and make you a millionaire tomorrow. I'm just being facetious with the stock market because that's how I've always been.
Right.
For me, it's real estate or your buckets. That's it. That's where my brain is. So for me, it's safety.
Yeah. Safety is awesome. Some people say, Mark, it'd be fine if I got rich, but I just want an absolute guarantee that I'll never be poor. That's what I've heard a client say yesterday. And then earlier today, a guy has plenty of money in several of his Bank on Yourself designed whole life policies that we set up for him. And he sees it as easy to get access to that money so he can invest in real estate, syndication deals, doing terms deals. These sorts of things are more possible when you've got not just an emergency fund, but an opportunity fund for you to really have some contingency money when banks stop lending, as they often do during emergencies. He said, Mark, I've got my emergency fund all finished. It's in my policies. It's doing fine. But what I want now is how much more can I take advantage of investments with this other money in my policies so that I can reach for even better results. Maybe you lose some, maybe you win some. But he was very happy with how easy it was to get access to the money. And again, just for your audience, if it's a new concept for you, just quickly, Chris, I'll share.
I was going to say, let's peel that onion back for them. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. Yeah. So, one of the strategies, it's not all we do. We're a full financial firm, but one of the strategies we're known for and specialize in is using overfunded dividend paying whole life insurance, AKA Bank on Yourself designed whole life policies. And when you put money into these policies, it makes your financial life easy. What would it look like if it were easy? Well, at least for me, here's what it's looked like for me. You put money into these policies and it grows safely. There's your word, Chris. It grows predictably. So I know exactly what my growth will be on a guaranteed basis every year. I can get access to that money for any purpose, for my, emergency fund or for my investments. There's no prohibited transactions. I can invest in some real estate or I can go to Disney World with the cash. And, when you use this money, it's basically on your timeline on if or when you repay the policy to put the money back in. So it's sort of a loan, a bank on yourself, as they say. You're borrowing against the cash value, but you're in control, back to being easy, like you're in control of how you repay that loan to the policy. Now, for a lot of folks, that sounds like a breath of fresh air because they're not, having to call the banker, let them know the check's in the mail. They're not worried about getting their car repoed or Uncle Guido showing up at the front door with a baseball bat. You're in control. You've got the bank in your pocket, so to speak.
So here's where my brain always goes with you. And I'm sure on all the time we've chatted on the podcast anyway, I brought this up because I know right now people shut down and go, okay, great. When I get some money, I'll do that. Seriously, that's the deal. One of the clients I just sent you last week, one of our associates said similar to me. It wasn't exactly that, but it was, well, but should I talk to Mark yet? I want to make sure I have this much saved up. No. Talk to Mark now. And so you can get a strategy together. And then on top of that, talk a little bit, Mark, about how little people could do to get that habit going. And you might say it differently, but in my eyes, I don't care what you got. Just get something going so you can start to taste what this looks like to be the easy route. That makes sense?
Yeah, that's a great, that makes complete sense. It's always a good idea to think carefully about what you want your money doing for you. Even that costs you nothing, to put that in your mind and to get that mindset going. As far as these policies go, we sit down without preconceived notion that would be a good idea for every single person. So we just have a free one-on-one discussion with folks over Zoom or over the phone, just like we're doing right now. And, 15 minutes is all it really takes for us to at least understand your situation. And then we would have a more in-depth, 1 hour or whatever phone call to really get into the nuts and bolts, interest rates on your credit card if you have one, your mortgage, your savings accounts. If it looks like Bank on Yourself would be a good fit, Chris, you're right. I've seen policies start, even with maybe just a couple $100 a month on the low end. $200-300 a month is all it takes. And I had a guy say, well, Mark, I can't even do that. But then we got into his conversation, we got into his numbers, and he had a $6,000 a year tax refund. He was getting a refund of $6,000 a year.
They just don't think they do.
That's right, man. Crazy. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. And you start with one, but it becomes kind of this rolling good addiction. I just opened up another policy this year, and it's because every time every time God's making it rain, you got to open up another policy to dump some more money in, to grab some more buckets to catch all that wonderful rain that's pouring down. So you start where you are, you grow from there.
So I wrote down, let's fix that. When you said someone says they don't have 100 or two. So I'm just going to slight rant here for a second, but for you, the wicked smart listener right now, listen, if your knee jerk mentally just now listening to Mark and I was any form of, yeah, but, or I can't yet, or I got to wait till this, please fix that. Now, I'm not being egotistical about this. I'm not pointing a finger at you, but what I am saying is please take control of that. There's a couple ways you can do that. You can start by making a phone call and getting with people that know what they're doing, like Mark, and he'll give you a link later for that. It doesn't cost you a dime. Secondly, you can get around like-minded people. And I know this sounds foo-foo for some of you, but listen, I know, Mark, I want your opinion on this. I've ranted a long time about it does matter who you hang out with. I don't care what you think of that as a listener, but it matters, and it will affect where you're going this year. You're going to listen to this around June, around mid-year. So let me ask this question, then Mark can comment on who he hangs out with or how important that is for you. Are you halfway through where you thought you'd be for your goal when in January of 22, you set out to accomplish X? Are you halfway there? And if you're not, it's okay, but don't kid yourself that you're going to make up for it now. Start with something new. And this could be one of those many starts. So that's not a real estate rant. That's a get your act together rant. Mark, any comments?
No, I couldn't agree with you more, man. Yeah. Everyone has a more than they realize available to them. We live in an abundant world in this country specifically. And learn to work on yourself at least as hard as you're working on your job, because your job is essentially if you work a W-2 for somebody else, if you're not an entrepreneur, your 40 hours a week is going towards somebody else's future, somebody else's dreams. At least put 4 hours a week toward your own future, your own dreams. Okay. So that's just 1/10 as much as you're giving to somebody else's retirement, their goals, their hope, their dreams. At least work as hard on yourself as you are at your job.
Well, here's an idea then. We have coming up, Mark is going to be with us. We have the summer deals coming up June 11th. It's only in a few weeks if you're listening to this when it first comes out. Now, just for example, and Mark, love your opinion on this too. Okay, let's just say hypothetically, you show up at this one-day virtual event. It's virtual. Every single one of you right now should be able to go there and do this. And let's say, for argument's sake, you learn how to do a deal, because we're going to structure deals all day for 8 hours. That's all we're doing. It's the most popular thing we do with the community. And let's say you keep your job and you keep your mentality. I don't want you to, but you keep your mentality that I don't have anything extra. Okay. So what if we show you in the next 6 months, very realistic, not pie in the sky, how to do one freaking real estate deal, just one. And the 3 paydays average somewhere between 45 grand and 250 grand. That's going to take you for the next 2 or 3 years to realize. You could take that and be in business with Mark and never look back. That's a game changer, Mark. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's exactly right. You and I work so well together, Chris, because it's sort of a hand in glove conversation. You help your associates and members find incredible income, and that money has to live somewhere. It's either going to go to the grocery store or it's going to go somewhere into their future bucket, so it goes to their current today bucket at the grocery store, or it's going to their future bucket. And, what's a great place to park some money? Well, it's when one of these bank on yourself designed policies. And oh, by the way, it's all liquid, accessible cash in the policy. So where might they put that money? Right back into strategies, associate fees, whatever else that might be needed for growing their business with you.
Awesome stuff. I just mentioned some of deals. Let me be remiss not to say you're also going to be with us at the flagship QLS event. You know what? I got to ask you, actually, we're live here, but the QLS event is going to be the first time back in the ballroom in 3 years. So I don't know if you're going to physically be there, but I figured I'd let you know that. I haven't told you that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, here's hoping, I'm either going to be there in person or I'm going to die, one or the other, because that's how badly I want to hang out. So that's how cool it is. QLS, you guys got to go check it out.
Yeah, and that wasn't what Mark and I were jumping on about, but I just thought of that. He and I haven't even talked about this, but we are going to be live again, and we haven't done that since 19 with the Wicked Smart community. So Summer of Deals, you can be there virtually, but in September 14, 15, 16, I think it is, you're going to want to be there hanging out with us guys, because it will change your direction in a lot of ways. Mark, can you give them a little tidbit, and then we'll wrap up, a little tidbit about what they'll get from you? Because we do a lot of things together, like at the Summer of Deals and or at the QLS. What are they in for? Because they're going to hang out with you privately sometimes, and sometimes in a group setting.
Well, yeah, you were talking earlier about how important the community is to just be around the average people, the 5 average people, and what that does, So if you can find a way to escape that bucket of crabs we were talking about earlier, and find yourself among real peers or people who you could look up to. Chris is somebody that you can look up to. Zach, the whole team, Brian, the whole team are people you can look up to. And so, yeah, any chance you can get to be around people who've been in the trenches, like Chris has, like these guys have, you're in for a treat for sure.
Yeah, and if you haven't been to our events, and if you have, this should be a reminder for you. Let's say Mark's doing a presentation. It's always content rich, and he's doing a presentation virtually. We're usually doing breakouts. You also have a chance to chat with him kind of on the chat panel privately. And if in the live event in September, you get the chance to rub elbows with all the speakers. 5 or 10 minutes with Mark or any speaker can change your direction, guys. People say to me, well, I don't know how I read so-and-so's book and I can't reach out to him. Or I read so-and-so's, or I went to so-and-so's seminar. You can reach out, especially if they're sitting there right in the room. Mark, how important is that, by the way? What are your thoughts on mentors reaching out? I read a book, I reach out to the person almost every time if I like it.
Yeah. You have to have people who are walking just a few steps ahead of you. I'll tell you a quick story. My wife and I, we fell in love in Texas, but we really, I almost asked her to marry me on the mountain of in Japan, Mount Fuji. And on our way up the mountain, this little guy, this really awesome, really wonderful Japanese guide. He was a friend of ours. We lived with him for several months. He was just walking us up the mountain. He was always a few steps ahead of us. And we were all complaining and whatever. He's probably 70 and he's busting our butts. And he's always saying, just a little bit farther, just a little bit farther. And he got us to climb that whole mountain, just saying the words, just a little bit farther, about 3,000 times. And we kept believing him. So that's the power of a good mentor. Just a little bit farther, just a little bit farther.
That's cool. That reminds me, my wife started running for the first time. This is 30 years ago. But she would look at the next telephone pole because she was just so inundated with trying to get to the 1 mile or 2 mile or 3 mile point. But yeah, huge point. A little bit further for how long did you climb? How high?
Well, Mount Fuji is, hey, here, it's I think it's 12,365 feet. That's 12 months, 365 days a year. That's how you can remember how tall Mount Fuji is.
Wow. Okay. So that's a little bit further.
That's right.
Cool stuff. Mark, how can these guys, I don't want them to wait for the event. I mean, I want them all to go to the event, summerofdeals.com, I think it is, and QLSlive.com. But I also want them to be able to talk to you ahead of time, because coming out of the event, you get buried usually, and you should because of your content. So what's the best way for them to get with you or book a call with you? Let's leave them with that nugget for sure.
Well, if you go to bit.ly/BOY real estate, that's bit.ly/B as in Bravo, O as in Oscar, Y as in Yo-Yo, BOY real estate. That's bit.ly/boy real estate. I can connect, say hello, do a 15-minute call with you. You can also check out our network and our Not Your Average Financial Community through that same link. So that's bit.ly/BOY real estate.
Can they get to your podcast through that, Mark? Because that's a writer down, and there's a lot of education there. They can? Good.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, if folks want to know, if you're already on your podcast app, just type in Not Your Average Financial Podcast, and you'll find 200 plus episodes, 1 and maybe now 2 by the time this airs, of our good buddy Chris as a guest as well.
Yeah, my wife said, Mark, recently we were in Vermont, as you recall, and whenever I ask you a question, you give me 3 or 4 great content-rich episodes or documents to read. And she said, how long have you been studying that stuff with Mark? It's probably been, 3 or 4 years. I just constantly devour it. I'm getting there, but I won't catch up to you, but I'm getting there with how important it is.
Yeah, you're quite a learner, and that's the kind of folks I love hanging out with. People who are willing to stretch themselves. I've had the privilege of reading your books, and it honestly, you've broken my mind a few times with some of the awesome real estate strategies you teach, and folks are in the right place when they're listening to your podcast. So keep it up.
We're prodding each other now to continue to prod each other, so that's good. All right,
that's right.
Mark, it was awesome chatting with you again. You guys, every single one of you, Summer of Deals, June 11th, get over to summerofdeals.com. Any questions, email support at smartrealestatecoach.com. Make it a great day.